Welcome to Author in Your Classroom from Plazoom. My name is Helen Mully, and the author in your classroom, or wherever you're listening for this episode, is comedian, TV presenter, and of course, author Dara Ó Briain. Welcome to the podcast, Dara.
It's lovely to be here. Hello to everybody listening.
We're delighted to have you. Now, listeners, as I said, Dara is a comedian. And so, as you might expect, his books are very funny indeed. However, if you haven't yet read them, and you really, really must, what you might not anticipate is that they are also incredibly fascinating, fact-filled explorations of science, the night sky, space, and more. In fact, his third and latest children's title, called Is There Anybody Out There?, covers how life began, how the Earth was created, and whether or not we humans could really be the only life in the universe. Dara, those are, I think it's fair to say, some pretty serious subjects. Why did you decide to write about them using humour?
Well, I know no other way of writing. That's
fair enough.
A thing which is you have to kind of, as you do lots of essays and writing in school, you do kind of find your voice, as we would say. You find the thing that you enjoy, that you like, the way you enjoy writing.
Yeah.
And for me, even when I was writing essays in primary school, I was putting in little jokes and silly things. And
how did those go down with the teachers?
They went okay. They went fine. They were grand. I wasn't like the class clown or anything, but it added a bit of colour to what I was writing about. It is a thing that when I do a lot of making up of things when I'm writing comedy shows, and the comedy shows are obviously more for grown-ups and all that, but it's not that different in some ways, that you're basically being curious and seeing what triggers a little joke, a silly joke in your head. And I've always had a passion for space and for planets and for looking at stars and all this kind of stuff. And I think it's an inherently, like, it's an interesting thing. It's, it's big, it swooshes, it's science fiction and Star Wars and all these things or whatever. But also there's a lot of silliness that you can fit around it. And so you write the thing that you have a passion for, and that you just you kind of look at it from a slightly sideways way. So, and also, I like explaining things. I like people to understand the things that I'm passionate about, and it makes it easier if you soften it with some silliness.
Yeah. So essentially, humour is a good tool to use when teaching and learning generally.
It can be. I mean, if it's in service, if it flatters it, if it compliments it, if it doesn't get in the way, essentially, it's very easy to just be silly.
To all the teachers listening, just work on your routine first.
Yes, yeah. I would say that there's a time and a place for it, I suppose, is a way of putting it. And actually, I have to remember not to be too factual when I go back to just doing the comedy. I have to just remember, oh no, the rules are off now. I don't have to keep referring back to something serious now. I can just be silly. But it is a kind of a way of lightening these things up, and because people think these big ideas have to be treated seriously, and they don't. There's a lot of inherent ridiculousness about the fact that we basically put on an outfit that puts a tiny version of our atmosphere, and we surround ourselves in that, and we go off into a place we don't exist. We shouldn't be in space. It's a really unfriendly, horrible place to be. And then we carry a little pocket of Earth around with us as we do that. And there's things like that are inherently silly. Living on a space station 100 miles above Earth, even the fact that space only begins 60 miles up in the sky, people think it's a long way away.
Yes, that blew my mind.
It's really close. Yeah, I mean that's the boundary for it. So
I could get to London more quickly.
Oh, you could, absolutely. And there's large parts, people who read these books who are closer to the space station than they are to the sea.
Wow.
And it's very nearby, and actually if the worst comes to the worst and they have to get off space station quickly, like in an emergency, they can be down in 8 minutes. It can be really fast.
I'm not sure why they make such a fuss about it, really.
Honestly, really, they go on about it a lot, like it's a big deal. Don't know why we aren't all there all the time. The other thing is, which I love about space, my other favorite fact about the space station, which actually isn't in this book but is in the previous one, is because they're falling all the time. So they're in what is like zero gravity. So because they're constantly falling around the Earth, so there's no gravitational pull. There's no up or down because of this, and there's no natural way to, if you stop moving and there's nothing pushing you, you'll just stay there. you'll stay. So, but there is a room in the space station, which is the largest room from which the other rooms, I think, they spiral off, that you can place an astronaut in the middle of the room, like literally floating in the middle of the room. And then you back away and they can't do anything about it. They're floating there because they can't push off anything. There's only air around them. They can't swim anywhere. So they're stuck there until you go and poke them with a stick and they float off in the other direction. So it's difficult to do, but it is, as they say, it's a trick we like to perform every so often.
Do they sneak up on each other while they're asleep?
The first time someone arrives, they go, no, come here, we've got a thing to show you. And they just leave them there for a while.
Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, obviously, it's important when you're writing about science and space that you know your stuff, and obviously you do. And when you were at university, you studied mathematics and theoretical physics. But I'm fairly sure that you didn't stop learning after leaving university. I mean, how important is it, do you think, for everyone to stay curious?
Oh, look, it's everything, because it's a big world and lots of things are out there. And like, that doesn't mean you have to be, you're going to be curious about everything. A lot of the joy of life is finding the thing that you have a passion for, finding the thing that is most exciting to you. And a lot of the journey to education will be you specializing down to this. It's amazing how narrow this gets as people move on to university and stuff, how they narrow down to a very specific thing and going, well, this is all my passion. It turned out wasn't for, medicine in general. It was just for the left toe. I was all really, turns out, I've always really wanted to know everything about the left toe. And there's somebody who does that. And it's part of the just great mixture of humanity that we all find tiny parts of the world that become our universe. So I carried on. Admittedly, what I did was in my journey, I went to university to study these mathematics and it was very dry and very serious and very, very technical and stuff. And I kind of missed the big results, the big picture kind of fun stuff of it all, because it was a training. At that point, it becomes like a training. And then I had to get out of university for a while and go off and tell jokes. And then I rediscovered my passion for it. And now I'm in the garden all the time with a telescope, and trying to take pictures of things that you can't see with the naked eye, which is my current obsession. But it's all about, finding the thing, being curious, because the point of being curious is that you will discover the thing that immediately in your head goes, well, what's the next question after that?
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that, look, we're under no illusions. You're not going to find everything really interesting. The second book I wrote is called Secret Science. And Secret Science had a balance of different sciences in it. And I put a note at the start going, you're not going to like all of this. You might like the bit that's about engines, or you might like the bit that's about, the way your brain works. It doesn't mean you're going to like all of them. And then at the end is a bit where I go, look, you might be the person who becomes a neuroscientist, or you might be the person who becomes the next engineer. You just find the thing that most, excites you. And we're lucky. There's a lot of very, very exciting stuff out there. Like, I personally love space, but so I'm very happy to enthuse about that, like whatever. But you will find the thing that is your version of space.
Absolutely, even if that is the little toe.
Look, the left toe, very interesting thing. The left big toe. Honestly, I'm very different to the left small toe. They're very, very different animals altogether.
That's brilliant. I think it would be great if our listeners who aren't already familiar with your writing could have a little taste of what it's like. So let's pause for a moment while you grab a copy of Is There Anybody Out There and then find the right page, and then we'll come back to hear you read an extract for us, if that's okay. Welcome back to Author in Your Classroom with my guest for this episode, the very clever, talented and funny Dara Ó Briain. Dara, you're going to read a little bit of your latest book, Is There Anybody Out There, for us now. Perhaps you could just explain where it fits into the picture as a whole before you start, just to give us a little idea of where we are. Absolutely.
The book, Is There Anybody Out There, is about life in space and are there alien lives? Because we've no definite answer for that, or
Spoiler.
You would have heard by now. Yeah, well, it's not a secret that we have yet to meet ET, but it brings in topics of what information do we send out? What information can we hear if we listen to space? What are we listening to? What planets are we currently finding? They're called exoplanets, and there's a huge explosion in new planets that we're finding. Planets with 2 stars, planets with 3 stars. We even found a planet with 4 stars. And so and as part of that, then we ask the question like, well, look, how did life begin here? How did life begin? We take this as an example. Firstly, how did this, it was a cloud of gas and dust. How did that become a sun and 8 planets and all the other rocks and bits and Pluto and minor planets and all that it has? And then further from that, how did life appear? So the question really is, what is life within that? So this is the start of a chapter called What is Life? What is life? This seems like an easy question to answer. Animals, right? Big furry ones, wet slippery ones, ones that fly. That covers it. Oh, and insects as well. We almost forgot insects. So life is anything that runs around or flies or swims and eats things and gets eaten by other things. Said the houseplant sitting on your desk. What about us? So yes, of course, we have to include plants and trees and grasses and ferns and all that stuff. They don't move anywhere or eat anything other than the Venus flytrap, and we definitely have to have a proper talk about them at some stage. They must be aliens. But they grow and they create new life. But these are all pretty big, though. What about the little things? The bugs, the germs, the bacteria, and even the organisms we've recently discovered in the most inhospitable places, the extremophiles, we call them, that can live by the volcanic jets deep down under the sea or frozen in the Arctic snow. The problem is that though it's easy to say that's alive when you're petting your dog or picking an apple off a tree, in a more general way, it's very difficult to narrow down a good definition of life. Traditionally, we would say something like, life is the ability to reproduce, in other words, have little animals, and spread. But then by that definition, fire is alive. So let's make it more complicated and say, life is the ability to take energy or matter from the environment around you and use it to help reproduce. This sounds pretty good. But if you ever made a crystal from one of those kits where you dip a string in a glass for a couple of weeks, it definitely uses matter from its environment to make more crystals. And you would never say a crystal was alive. But whatever definition we settle on for life, it'll have to include everything from animals we can interact with, dogs, people, a moose, all the way down to things that we can only see under a microscope, bacteria, viruses, and the like. The chances are, though, and this is sort of disappointing, that in our search for life on other planets, we're far more likely to discover things from the tiny end of that list rather from the large furry end. Because the small stuff has just been around for so much longer. If you look at the history of life on Earth, the big, complex, furry, talking creatures arrived pretty late in the process. And it was a very long process. It was more like a Sunday roast than a microwave dinner. If the Sunday roast took 4 billion years, including having to wait 3.99 billion years for the chickens to evolve. Even if we found an exact replica of Earth somewhere out there tomorrow, orbiting around an exact double of our sun at exactly the same distance, that planet could be at any stage of this life cooking process. But the chances of you arriving just as the people of Earth 2 were evolved enough to recognize what you were and have a chat with you about your day are pretty slim.
Okay, now I just want you to explain everything
to
me. Do you do mortgages?
I do, absolutely. I can do a funny version of grown-up boring stuff like that. Pensions. You want to talk about pensions in a funny way?
I'm definitely in for that. I love the way it this is going to sound so obvious, but it flows so naturally, just as though you were talking. And the obvious thing to think about then is your stand-up and how you write your stand-up. And is it a really similar process?
There is. I mean, I have been doing I've been doing stand-up for about 25 years, and I've written about 20 shows or thereabouts for between big tours and Edinburgh shows and all these things that you do, different shows that you do. And it's a very conversational thing. You write as you talk. You never actually write the things down word for word. And it's weirder for me to a certain extent to be writing a book because you literally have to put the words down. You actually put the ands and the does and the ofs and actually physically write them. While at the same time wanting it to stay conversational. Because there are a lot of factual books and people in classes will know this, that, you lift a flap and there's another fact about this, or there's a big picture of stuff with arrows pointing to things.
Yeah.
And they're great. They're really, really good. They're full of tons of information. But a one that just reads, that you could just sit down and it will carry you. That's what you want. And therefore I'm basically a tour guide. You're strapping yourself in and then for as long as they have you at the end of the day, if you go to bed or whatever, or if, a mum and dad are reading it to you, it should just flow along, and they should be there, and I'm pointing to you, I'm pointing to this, and I'm popping it in your head, but it should flow. And so it's written to be read as going in from starting at A, go to B, rather than the many factual books for kids, which are very much more a case of like, well, let's pour over this giant diagram and pick it up, which is great too, but a different thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And from your reading just now, it's clear that it does do exactly that. I'm interested to know, it is funny. I was sniggering to myself, and possibly not to myself, all the way through that. But also you are trying to explain something quite clearly and get these big ideas across. How do you stop the jokes getting in the way of the explanation?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. There is something about, there's a point where you need, and this happens when you're writing a comedy routine as well.
Yeah,
you need to get the information across, because the people person needs to have the information across, and you can't distract from that by putting a custard pie in your face at the wrong moment. So you need to. There's a point where you need to. Right, we need to establish this stuff. Really, it's a case of once I've established this, then I can be silly about it. But sometimes it's a good explanation. There is, for example, a long section in the book. We discover exoplanets because they're planets just like ours, but they're a long way away. And what we do is we look at a star, and what we see is occasionally the light from the star dips just a tiny amount, just like it goes from 100% of the light to going to 99.93 of the light, like just a tiny amount. And the reason it has is because a planet has gone between us and the star. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so that happened, and then we check, does it happen again, and does it happen again? So therefore, does it happen regularly that this dips, and that means the planet's going around. I have an explanation that's involved. You take a bee, you train the bee, you get a lamp. Don't look at the lamp. Don't look directly at the lamp. But anyway, turn on the lamp, get the bee to fly around, and make the bee fly around, and watch the way the light dips in the lamp as the bee flies around. And then we carry on with the thing. And then there's a point where I remember, oh my God, the bee, have we still got the bee flying around? Tell the bee to stop flying around. Give the bee some honey, thank the bee, let the bee go. So it's a good parallel. It's a good metaphor for it, like whatever, but it is hopefully also silly.
And those things stick in the mind, don't they? I will remember the bee flying around the lamp.
I do raise the issue of, how do we get the bee to do this? How do we convince the bee that he needs to do this and illustrate this point? Because honestly, I could have just said, just move your finger around the lamp. It could have worked fine. But the bee, I think, creates a thing in the book. And so there's a few of those. I mean, there's a few times there are big ideas that you want to get across that are amazing. And are fundamental. The way that we can tell what gases are in the atmosphere of a planet is because of a thing that happens to electrons. The tiniest thing tells us the biggest thing. And there's a whole sequence in the book where I go, right, this is amazing. That because electrons jump, and I explain why, we can tell what gas is in a planet like millions of years of miles away. And how we go from the small to the very, very big. And maybe, I think in that bit, I actually kind of just look, I'm patiently going to go through this. I'm not going to do a silly thing. I'm just going to go, and then maybe and hopefully you get this amazing idea.
Yes.
So there's times to do it and times to not do it. But often I have an internal clock, which all comedians have, which is they go, hasn't been a laugh in a while, better get a laugh now, better get a laugh. So you pop in, you make sure there's, every so often there's something silly that people will smile at.
Absolutely. Dara, there's one other thing I wanted to talk to you about. This podcast is all about books and reading and writing and the excitement and adventure that those things bring into our lives. Now, a lot of our listeners will be very used to hearing from adults that some of the other things they enjoy, like, say, video games, aren't nearly as important, that they should be reading instead of playing with a screen. Now, if I may say, you're a smart man, you're a successful man, you've written books as well as reading them, but I believe you do also like a bit of gaming.
I do. I love gaming. You won't find me, and I don't undo the work of anyone on this one, but I am pro gaming. We have machines in the house, and the reason I am because of the imagination of the worlds constructed in gaming.
Yes.
Because it allows people to inhabit. Here's my counterexample where people go, oh my God, gaming is the common thing is like it's not good for
Yeah.
your brain, and it's stunting your imagination. To which any 8-year-old would go, really? Because I just played a game in which I fought a dinosaur that I had designed against a dragon designed by somebody in Japan, and we had a battle in somewhere in space. And you're going, oh, fair point, touche, good point. Yes, I think I think obviously you can't be doing loads and loads and loads of it because it's very easy. And we have a thing about it in one of the earlier books. It's designed to be addictive. It's designed to give you tiny rewards. That's why it's so nice, because it goes ding, 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 and gold coins appear. And every time a gold coin appears, there's a little chemical in your brain called dopamine that goes, oh, wow, oh, good, oh, great, wow, ding, ding, ding. And it just keeps it flowing along, and you're in a happy little state where you're getting rewarded all the time. So that's a trick they use. So sometimes it can be a wrench to step away from it. But the flip side of which is, the positive thing is, it is, if you want to design worlds, if you want to create things, you want to create pictures, you want to tell stories, it is an amazing thing, universes, that they create, that are totally malleable, totally like creatable, for people to go, well, actually, I want to create an 18th century, London, and I also want, but I want to put it on the moon, and I can do that, and I can make you walk around it. So I think it is a tremendous place to put the imagination, I hugely favor people doing coding and people thinking of designing, as well as just enjoying these worlds, these virtual worlds that have been created. And so I'm a huge fan of it. And I just obviously, be aware that when you stop, there's times when you stop and it will feel like a wrench, because they're very clever how these things are put together, and it does feel like a reward all the time you do it. But I think it's an amazing place to tell stories, and to explore worlds and to create them.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dara, thank you so much. As usual, I just want to remind all the teachers and parents listening that there will be a special resources pack available to go with this episode of Author in Your Classroom, created to help children have fun with facts in their own writing. It's available from plazoon.com, and the details are in the episode notes. Dara, we're getting to the end of our time now, so if you don't mind, I'm going to press pause just for a moment, and then we can come back for a few final words of inspiration for our listeners. Welcome back to Author in Your Classroom with my fantastic guest for this episode, Dara Ó Briain. Dara, so is there anybody out there has just been published? Do you have any more books for children planned? Anything in the pipeline?
We not at the moment. We're kind of we'll take a pause now, because I have to then go and write a funny show for grown-ups.
Grown-ups, pesky grown-ups.
I know, they do get in the way, don't they? And then we'll see what part of the world of science we look at next. We've got 3 of them, which is a nice line on the shelf of stuff. Yeah. And so we'll see.
That's definitely a series.
Yeah. So and they all have my silly face in the front, which is I'm not sure if that's a huge marketing tool, but but they do that. But so no, nothing specifically at the moment. I would say though that if you have any interest in space at all, and this has nothing to do with the book or anything like that, it is the easiest of hobbies to take up because it's free. It's just above your head, and it's the best advice I can give to people who want to look up and see things is get a parent or guardian or whatever to download any one of the million free apps that there are on phones that allow you to simply hold up a phone against the sky and will tell you what you're looking at. Because if you go for the bright things, more often than not, they'll be planets. And you'll find yourself looking at Saturn, or you'll find yourself looking at Jupiter or Venus. And it is like, I just presume they're all stars. They're all just dots, and they're not. So any one of those apps, and there's loads of them, and you just press, there'll always be a button called compass or something, and you can lift up the phone, and the picture will change as you move the phone around, and you'll be able to see the names of everything around. It'll tell you what the constellations are. It'll tell you when the moon is up. It'll tell you what planets you're looking at. And I think it's genuinely pretty amazing. Somebody just goes, see that dot there? That's Mars. That's a nice thing to be able to do.
That does sound amazing. Yeah, you can just walk out of your door and look up. That's extraordinary. And finally, if I were to ask you for another piece of advice for any child listening who's maybe dreaming of being a published author one day, what would it be?
Oh, my Lord.
Sorry, it's a tricky one, I know.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Find the thing you enjoy writing. That's probably the most important thing. Find either the story or the type of thing that you enjoy telling. And that could be a story, it could be a joke, it could be explaining a fact. And play with that. And think of it as playing with it is probably the most important thing, because I know it's difficult when you're in the middle school. It becomes homework and it becomes like a thing you have to do. Find the one that you love. We're back to the big toe again.
Find your big toe.
Find the big toe, your big toe in this situation. Find the thing that is a passion for you. And it might be that the stories you want to tell are ones you'll do through a video game, or the stories you'll tell be ones you want to do through a piece of art, or standing on stage telling jokes. There's a million different ways to tell stories. Just find the one that makes you smile.
That is such good advice, Dara. Thank you so much. And we really are out of time now. So I will just say thank you again for taking part in this podcast. It's been great fun. And I'm sure our listeners can't wait to get started with their own stories and fun-filled explanations. Take care, Dara. And listeners, do make sure that you come and join us for the next episode of Author in Your Classroom. I'll see you then. Author in Your Classroom is brought to you by Plazoom, where we are passionate about making great literacy lessons easy with inspiring, ready-to-go resources created by teachers to cover the whole of the primary curriculum. So, whether you're a teacher desperate for SATs revision that pupils will actually enjoy, a parent just as baffled by fronted adverbials as your child, or anyone looking for fun ways to keep children reading and writing during the summer holidays, we've got hundreds of brilliant ideas to explore. Take a look for yourself at plazoom.com, where you can sign up to our newsletter and be the first to find out about our special offers and the new resources that are added to the site every single week. Every episode of Author in Your Classroom is packed with writing advice and inspiration from some of the world's best-loved children's writers. Plus, there are free activities and worksheets based on each author's work to spark children's imagination on plazoom.com. Just check the episode notes for links and more. You can subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts. We want to reach as many pupils in as many classrooms as possible, so please do give us a rating or a review, but above all, tell your colleagues about us and help spread the word. We know that a love of reading opens doors, not just to success at school and beyond, but to a lifetime of excitement, adventure and discovery. Let us help you make it happen with Author in Your Classroom and Plazoom.